Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day-to-day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Simplify to Scale show. Today, I am super excited for our guest. Today, we're going to be talking about what it takes to sustainably build $1 million brand so you are not burning yourself out in the process. And whether you are just getting to your first million, or if this year or the past 18 plus months has caused you to do a lot of reimagining and a lot of reinvention, so much of what we're going to talk about is going to be so super relevant for you. So Julie, thanks so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So think back to when you made your first $1 million in your business.
Mhm.
So what did it really take to get there that might be a little surprising or a little different than what people might expect?
That's an interesting question. I think that when people are trying to build $1 million brand, they get really hung up on like what they're going to sell and how much they're going to charge and like their traffic and their branding. And the thing that never steered me wrong was that I always oriented to what are the problems in the world I can solve. So every offer, every brand, it's like, what's the problem? Like, what's the actual problem? Because if I just kind of like went with my ideas, who knows what I would come up with. But if I can identify a problem in the market and I can solve that problem better than most, now I have something that's going to make me money. And so I always tell people, you're looking for specific, you're looking for urgent, and you're looking for painful problems. Those three things, specific, urgent, and painful, are the makings of $1 million business. And you just have to find one. And I'm telling you, that's basically what I did.
It's brilliant. It sounds so obvious when you say it, yet I think so many people are taught to pursue your passion and figure out what you're good at. And you start with what you do, and then you try to find somebody to sell it to or a problem to solve with it. Whereas what you're talking about is so smart to start with the problem. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how, given today and some of the shifts in the market and things, I noticed that the way people have talked about things in the past has to be a little bit different today. The problems that people are solving might sound similar on the surface, but they're really a lot more nuanced and different today. So, what are you finding is really valuable for people to be thinking about in today's market?
Yeah, today's market expects things to be personalized. We are fastly approaching a world where we are just talking to AI assistants and everything is curated for exactly what we need. And the reason for that is because we don't just want the information, we want the transformation. We want, let's say I'm trying to lose weight or something, right? I don't want to just, search through Google and find an article and read the article and then apply it to my life. I want to, talk to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is going to know my height and my weight and, my blood type and all this kind of stuff and be able to create a tailored plan. The thing is, AI can do all of that, but will I actually do the plan? And will I actually lose the weight? And so this is why it's always been about transformation in the info product space and in the coaching space, but now even more so. So even if you have, AI tools supporting you and GPTs and all this stuff to kind of create that tailored plan, which you need to, what are you doing in your programs that are actually going to get people that transformation? Because that's what they're going to pay for. And that's not something AI can provide. And we're still a ways out from robots coming to your house and making your meals and holding you accountable. So, humans, that's where you're really going to have to focus your digital business, your online business, your coaching business, because that is the sweet spot that only humans can provide.
I agree so much, and it's true. I feel like so many people like, Is AI going to replace me? Is AI going to replace what I do?" But when you focus on transformation, when you focus on the higher level things, I feel like there really is no replacement, and it just creates more demand for it. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
All right. So there is something you talk about that is very near and dear to my heart because I have burned myself out something fierce in my entrepreneurial journey. And so I do see a lot of businesses as they are trying to hit seven figures or as they finally break through seven figures really burn themselves out along the way. So how do you approach this and how do you recommend people look at this very differently so they don't burn out?
Burnout is, I think, it's hard to make $1 million. Like, I don't want to like sugarcoat it. And in the first 10 years when I was trying to figure out this business game, there were a lot of seasons of hustle for me. But I find that burnout happens when you have your foot on the gas, but the car isn't moving, right? And so you're just like at high speed, but like you're still in park. That's going to burn out your tires on your car. That's really going to burn you out. I feel like when people are moving fast, but there's momentum, they're less likely to burn out. So, what causes burnout, I think, in growing a business is usually a lack of focus and attention. So, I see this is a classic example. Someone like, they launch a coaching program. It sort of works, it doesn't work great. So, then they transition to a low ticket offer with a challenge on the front end, and that sort of works. And then they're like, well, maybe I should, start a podcast and write a book. And so then they do that. And so they end up with like 15 things that they have to manage, all which aren't really doing what need to be done to get to that $1 million. And that's where you're just, with each additional thing, you're just like pushing on the gas, but you're not actually moving forward. I tell people if you want to make $1 million and you want to do it without burning out, it is just relentless focus on the one high leverage activity that you can do over and over and over until you're better than anyone at it. That's going to get you to $1 million and keep you alive in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree fully. I call it leaning out. You need to lean out to the like one thing, the core thing that really
Mhm.
makes a difference. And how do you tell people to find how to find that high leverage activity?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of trends and tactics. I tend to default to the one high leverage activity that really hasn't failed me yet in 10 years, and that is a sales presentation. You call it a webinar, you call it a masterclass, but if you can dial in a good sales presentation and you can do that presentation regularly and interact with customers, you're going to hit $1 million. And so, people will say, oh, webinars are dead, or I tried the on demand webinar, it didn't work. In most cases, a sales presentation that is tight and choreographed and well done and well practiced will build your business faster than almost anything else.
Yeah, I do agree with that completely. And yet, so many people will have so much fun playing in all of the other areas
And they
of
won't do it.
business instead of that.
Or they'll do it like once or twice or three times, and then they'll be like, it didn't work. I have people, it's taken 10, 12, 15 webinars before it works. And I'll say to them, like, if you had given up on webinar 3 or 4 or 6, like, you wouldn't be seeing the fruit of your labor. So when people say they don't work, I'm like, no, no, the system works, but your nervous system isn't prepared for the gap between when you start and when you succeed.
That's such a good point. I remember one of my businesses I launched, I did it pure webinar style and I ran ads and I taught the same exact webinar every single 2 weeks. And my team thought I lost my mind. Oh, why would you do this every single 2 weeks? But my goal was to try to perfect it just enough that it actually gave me the right results. And it was a little exhausting in the beginning when I was still figuring it out, but once I got it down, it's kind of empowering. It's exciting to do all of a sudden. You know when and where people are going to engage. You know the results in a way going in, and I think that that is just, you're right, it is the momentum in the business.
It is. I mean, I do a webinar once a week, and I've been doing it for weeks and weeks and weeks.
I love it. All right, so today, if you were building from scratch today and taking a brand new business to $1 million, what do you think is maybe a little bit different today than in the past, or what you would focus on today especially?
Well, today there's more competition and noise than there was when I first built my $1 million, runway. I think I would insist on being even more specific than you're comfortable with. And the thing is, you're only gonna get traction if you become a big fish in a pond. So you have to make the pond small enough that you can be the biggest fish. And so I tell people this all the time. Like when I was up and coming, sales funnels were still kind of like a new idea. So I was like in the sales funnel pond. It was a big pond, but I like clawed my way into, one of the top sales funnel builders in my category. I could never start in the sales funnel world in that pond today. I would have to build a pond that's like, I'm an expert in a live weekly webinar to a $500 course. And like that type of webinar is what I do. And then I'd shrink the pond and then I'd become the best in the world in that pond. And that's how I would do it today.
Yeah, that is such good advice. And so let's talk about your book. So I know
Mhm.
you have a brand new book coming out, which I'm so excited. I hope all of you listening go and get a copy of the book, and we're going to talk about how to do that. But talk about, why did you write this and why do you think this is so important for people to read?
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to write kind of an autobiography of like my story. There's just a lot of drama, a lot of crisis, a lot of grit. The book is called $1 Million Grit. And I started writing it 3 years ago. I mean, it's taken me forever to get this book out. And, like any book draft, it just like evolves over time. And I realized I actually wanted it to be part memoir, part business book. I didn't want people just to have the story. And I didn't want it to be just like tactics and strategies, because there's a million of those. And I thought, well, what would be the most helpful thing I could give? And I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the 10 years where nobody knew who I was. I became sort of, internet marketing famous in 2018, let's say 2017, 2018. But what was happening the 10 years? Because I was actually online starting in 2007. So I just went through my life in those 10 years and I extracted 15 lessons. And these are lessons that you can use no matter what business, no matter what stage of business. And they are all highly relevant business lessons. And I just showed those lessons so that someone who takes this book can absorb those lessons and have it change the way they behave, whatever their business is today, and give you that like grit that you need to sustain, the million and beyond. I still use the lessons today that I did back then.
So, what's one of the lessons that you think would be super valuable for people to start thinking about?
Okay. Well, one of the lessons I already sort of teased, which was follow the problem. And this is, I give some really concrete examples of how I stumbled into thousands of dollars of business just by like a dog, sniffing out the problem. Another one that I think is really, really helpful is change the name, not the skill. This is a lesson on positioning. And I think people don't realize that they take for granted what they're good at because they're good at it. So they don't realize that it's special. And so then they undervalue it. They don't really charge for it, or they charge, too little. And the example I give in the book is that I was really good at blog design because I was like a mommy blogger. I didn't think this was a special skill, right? But people would ask me like, well, how'd you do that with your header? You can always tell when you have a superpower because like people will just ask you for advice. They'll just want to like pick your brain about something. And eventually I started charging for blog design, but I would charge like $300 because I didn't really value it. I just was like, this is easy. Like, okay, sure, cool, I'll do this. And it wasn't until I stumbled upon a web designer and like I was looking at this WordPress theme and I was like, this is amazing, but it was so expensive. I was like, I can't charge $300. The theme I need is $200. And I thought, well, what if I just change what I'm doing? I don't call it blog design anymore. Now I call it website design. And I charge $3,000 instead of $300. And the only reason I did that was because I just wanted this theme so badly. I needed to make it make sense financially. And then I did it again. And then I was like doing $3,000 websites. And then I discovered Russell Brunson, who was like a funnel builder at the time. And I was like, wait a second. Isn't a funnel just kind of like a website? Like same skills, right? It's like copywriting, tech, design. But now I can charge $10,000. And so I went from 300 to 3,000 to 10,000. The skill was the same, but the name was very different. And that lesson in positioning really helps people understand how to charge more and differently depending on the market that you are going for.
All right. I want you to rewind and listen to that part all over again because that was some serious gold. And I resonate so much with that because I remember I was having a conversation with someone. I had probably been in business like 10 years by now. I don't know why it took me so long to figure this out. And someone just stopped and looked at me and she said, "You realize your brain doesn't work like other people's brains, right?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "The reason I talk to you all the time is because you just spit this stuff out and you just design systems in your head while I'm talking. I literally don't know another person that does that." And I was like, "What do you mean? Doesn't everybody do that?" Like, I literally had no idea that other people did not think and process in systems. It's just so natural to me that it never even crossed my mind that the conversations I was having with people, what was it? The thought bubble in their head looked totally different than mine. And
Yep.
that was such a total game changer for my business and how I positioned myself and what I charged for what I did. I would just do it for free because it was fun to me. I didn't even think anything of it for the longest time in business.
Exactly. I mean, it's like you just take for granted the things that you can do with your eyes closed. You don't realize that that's a skill that somebody else really needs.
Mhm. Absolutely. So tell people, for anyone who doesn't know a little bit about your history and about what you do, tell people a little bit about yourself and your work and where they can find more about you and get a copy of your book.
Yes. So right now, today, I have two businesses. I run Digital Insiders. It's a business mastermind. It's for anybody who's trying to scale to, seven figures and beyond. I provide marketing support and coaching. I also am co-CEO of the software company Funnel Gorgeous. It's like marketing and software both. And we teach sales funnels, and we also have the sales funnel software available. And so I run that with my business partner, Kathy Olson. You can find out more about either of these programs at funnelgorgeous.com or juliechenell.com. Either one will get you there. As far as the book goes, the book is going to be available in ebook format. It'll be 99 cents on Kindle. It's actually free if you go to milliondollargrit.com, and that will be available starting October 26th. I decided to give it away for free because this was like my gift to the world. Like, here are the things that I can provide for you as you're getting ready to hit that first million. If you do get it for free on my website at milliondollargrit.com, there is a private podcast, commentary, as well as a book assistant GPT. Those will be paid products you can purchase, but I just want to get this into as many hands as possible.
Yeah, and what was your mission? I know you were talking about why you wanted to write it and how long it took, but what is the impact that you're hoping that the book has?
I'm hoping that the book helps give people permission to take that next step. And I hope that when they read the story, they think, oh my gosh, okay, if Julie can do this with this crisis and this drama and this problem, I can do it too. That's the best outcome I could think of, is that just people won't feel so alone and that they'll feel like they have permission to take action on their dreams.
All right. So there's a question I ask every guest, and I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. So, in your business, how do you scale smarter, not harder, and keep things lean?
How do I scale smarter, not harder, and keep things lean? I tie most activities to revenue generation. I look at, well, is this actually going to return revenue for me before I embark on it? I had a client the other day. She was doing she's doing the weekly live webinar. She's making, $8,000-$10,000 a week just running this webinar. She's like, I'm going to do a challenge. I'm like, cool. And she did it and she was like, "Why did I do that?" I like literally make things harder than they need to be because I get bored. And entrepreneurs do this all the time. They get bored. They're like, "I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that." I think for me, I don't hire fast. I think, what is the revenue generation opportunity here? And so I make decisions based on that. And I have a really, really good gift of ignoring. I ignore so much to the point where I miss things sometimes. But that focus keeps me from getting distracted.
I love it. That is brilliant right there. A lot of people distract themselves. And if
Mhm.
you can keep focused, that right there is a superpower. All
Yes.
right. So, any final tips for someone who maybe is at multi six figures, still trying to get to seven, or someone that had a really rough year and is in a period of reinvention? Where would you tell people to really laser focus in as they look forward into the new year?
Okay, if you are at multi six figures, getting to seven figures is usually a traffic problem. It almost always, because if you can get to multi six figures, you can get to seven figures if you have enough volume. So you want to look at your business model, make sure it's built for the volume that you need, and then figure out what your traffic plays are, because that's really the name of the game. Now, if you're a business owner who has crashed and burned, or you're feeling like you want to pivot, I always tell people, make sure that you're not pivoting during a crisis, because like everything feels horrible during a crisis. So like make sure you're not making any drastic burn it all down decisions, while the storm is raging. If you are pretty sure, I would remind yourself that people are not paying as close attention to you as you are paying to you. So it may feel like a big pivot to you, new website, new messaging. Nobody cares. Just like start doing it. You don't have to like explain it and write all these elaborate emails and explain how how your customer journey is going to change. Like I see so much of this. I'm like, literally no one noticed. Just start. Just pretend you've always been doing it this way. And they're like, "Oh, okay." Like no one's paying attention. I promise. So, that's my advice.
So good. Julie, thank you so much for being on. This was just so incredibly valuable. And I recommend you all go get a copy of the book. Make sure that you listen, get the podcast, get the GPT, get all the things. And tell people one more time where they can find the book.
Yes, you can get it at milliondollargrit.com. It'll be free, or you can purchase it on Amazon Kindle for 99 cents.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you all got as much value out of this episode as I did. I will see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Simplify to Scale. If you'd like to take things further, I invite you to join me for my Scale Smarter, Not Harder interactive workshop. Head to strategicopsinstitute.com/scale smarter to get registered. Not only will we dive into what might be keeping you trapped in the day-to-day, but you'll have the opportunity to ask me your questions live. If you got value out of today's episode, I'd love if you'd take a moment and rate and review the show so more businesses can learn to scale more simply and sustainably. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I'll see you again next week.